Hello, hello, and welcome to episode 71 of the Great Canadian Hockey Podcast. I'm James Parisi here with my co-host Aiden Sarah. And honestly, today, man, I'm buzzing. I'm feeling good. I somehow caffeine has carried me since like 10 a.m. Yeah, life's proper. Gonna go see a movie later. I'm happy. New tattoo, lease on life. How's things on your end, brother?
It's okay. I had a pretty tedious weekend, multiple hockey tournaments going on in Calgary that I spent all weekend working, but nice relaxing Tuesday so far. I've got the Utah Montreal game to the left of me. I got the Vancouver game to the right, and you and I are stuck in the middle here. So let's get some hockey going. How are you feeling after yesterday? Because you had to watch Colorado just get absolutely ripped by Tampa Bay. It was 8-2, and I didn't text you about it, but I'll let you say your 2 cents on this one now.
Well, I'm glad you didn't text me about it because that's how people get ignored pretty quick. The biggest pet peeve I have when watching sports with friends or talking about sports with friends is when they're like, "Your team sucked last night, hey?" Like, or like you're watching a game on the couch or even in the rink, like you're at an NHL game with your buddy, and your team's just getting waxed, rolled over. They have nothing, no life, which is exactly what this game was for Colorado. And then they're like, they just start cheering for the other team. Yeah. Yeah, it's like biggest pet peeve, but you know what? I get it. I've done it to friends too. It's like it's just like a different kind of banter, you know? But I don't usually put up with it at the time. I get a little pissy. But yeah, they were absolutely lifeless after letting in like three goals that probably didn't really need to go in. Like they weren't really all that special, weren't that crazy of scoring chances. Um, and the puck was kind of bouncing like that all night. Like one of Colorado's two goals went off the post and then off of a back checking Braden Point's leg and then in behind Vasilevsky. It was just like it was that kind of night. Honestly, there were probably three nice goals in that game. All of them by Tampa. I think two from Gensel, one from Cooch. Um, Gensel looks really good. Really good. I knew he'd fit, but I wasn't sure how they would deploy that line, how they would set it up. If they'd spread it out, yeah, he's gross. He's not dependent on a Crosby or an Aho or an anything really. He's just gross.
We don't have to go
But it's a
super
very
deep
skilled
dive.
player.
Yeah, we don't have to go super deep dive on this. I think you'll agree with me. Jake Gensel has played his way onto the U.S. Four Nations team this year in the spot of Cole Caulfield. Because as much as Caulfield started
Oh
the
yeah.
year on fire, the Montreal games I've watched, I've been less and less impressed with him. He's kind of more and more, and it happens when you kind of hit a slump, right? The rest of your game kind of takes a hit because you just want to score, and I can kind of see him, maybe cheating on some of his other responsibilities to try and be in the right spot or try and have a little head start at a goal scoring opportunity. But Gensel, yeah, he's playing an all around great game. Speaking of American players, let's jump into New York Rangers news because two guys that have defined the New York Rangers for at least the last half decade. You could say that. You could say the last decade, even for Chris Kreider, who's as good as a Rangers legend at this point for real. But
Oh, he's very high on all of their all-time leaderboards.
yeah, but Jacob Trouba and Chris Kreider are both apparently being shopped by the New York Rangers. That's big, and I get it because the Rangers, right? Like we've had a few years now where they've been close, they haven't had it to get over the finish line. And you take a look at what the numbers say, and the numbers say that those are two of the guys that are kind of standing in the way of the Rangers making a huge splash on the trade market for a big money guy. Um, do you think that there might be the potential that the Rangers are kind of taking the heart out of their team if they make a trade for one or both of these guys, because that's the downfall I see here. I got faith in Braden Schneider, I got faith in K'Andre Miller, I got faith those Rangers forwards are going to be able to step up, but it's the experience, the pedigree. Obviously, it's their captain. So, what do you think about both these guys potentially being on the move and then the effect it'll have?
Well, and you took the words right out of my mouth. I think those are like the spiritual leaders of this team. Like, regardless of how good Panarin, how good Adam Fox, how good Igor Shesterkin is, these guys are Rangers. Like, when you think New York Rangers, you're like, yeah, Chris Kreider, that's a Ranger. And it means a lot to be a Ranger. It's not just like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I'm throwing shade here. It's not like, oh yeah, I played for the Columbus Blue Jackets for a couple years. Or yeah, I was an Ottawa Senator in the mid 2010s. No, it's I look back at this moment in my career when I was a New York Ranger and what it meant to suit up in MSG night in, night out and go to war. Like it's a storied franchise. Obviously not as successful as some other teams that have been around as long as they have, but it's important. It means a lot, and these are guys who have worn it on their sleeve. Um, I will tell you right now, I think if both of these guys are traded, I think this team is going to take a dumpster dive for the remainder of the season. There's probably going to be a couple injuries, a lot of guys whose hearts aren't in it, and it'll probably be followed by a summer full of moves. Right now, Truba is playing with Ryan Lindgren, who we've previously glazed pretty hard. Like we talk really highly of Ryan Lindgren. Those two, their numbers together, advanced stats wise, garbage, terrible. Ryan Lindgren is meant to be playing with Adam Fox. Well, he's not playing with Adam Fox. I'm not a coach. Obviously, their coach knows more than I do. I am just a spectator and a guy who likes to think he knows something about hockey, but probably doesn't. Um, I realistically think they have some structural problems and they rely a lot on chemistry between some players working really often and their goalie being one of the best people, if not the best, at what he does on the planet. And when, you know what, I'm saying when, not if, when they move on from at least one of these guys, it's going to be a straight shot to the jugular.
No, I know what you mean. And you know what? I was wrong when I said that very wrong clearly because they won the Stanley Cup. But when Huberdeau and Weegar were traded off the Panthers, obviously they got the best player out of that deal. But my thinking with Florida was, man, did they just rip the hearts out of this team, right? Did they just rip some of those emotional leaders? And so, like we're talking about how yes, there's there's a chance that you have both on the ice and off the ice struggles that come from moving these guys if you're the New York Rangers, but I'll kind of point to that Panthers trade where you had two similarly established guys who were the emotional heartbeats of that team get moved out. And, clearly in retrospect, nobody in the Florida organization would say that trade was anything but perfect, right? So obviously it'll depend what the return is for the Rangers. Give me a destination each, Trouba Kreider.
Uh, Chris Kreider, it's really, really funny. I think back to the mid 2010s when the Tampa Bay Lightning became Rangers South. I could really see Chris Kreider in a Tampa Bay Lightning jersey. I don't know how they make it work. I don't really think it's that hard to make it work. I think they could do it. And I think they would do it. And don't you think Ryan McDonough would be stoked to see his old buddy that he used to go to war with take a trip down south and go to battle one more time? Jacob Trouba. I'm going to go with exactly what the report said in the summer. I think he would be an excellent Detroit Red Wing. I think they have some young guys back there who could use some support. I think he would fire up those young guys. You think about those big Trouba train hits when he gets guys in the trolley tracks. I think about all of the young guys on that team and how they would respond when that happens and go, oh, wow, he's willing to do that for us. Let's do something for him. What do you got?
Kreider's harder. I love the Tampa one. I definitely didn't have that, but That's good. It's hard just because, conference rivals, whatnot, but I could see him having a lot of success in Boston. I think Boston are maybe having a little bit of buyer's remorse right now with Elias Lindholm and just might want
And Nikita
a
Zadorov.
yes, and might just want a shakeup to the forward core. Jacob Trouba, man, this might be a hot take. I think Jacob Trouba is going to complete a what's going to end up looking like a pretty solid top six in defense in Edmonton. Evander Kane,
Okay, how though?
Evander Kane's still on LTIR, so you still have the 5 million bucks there. Stan Bowman has done this before. They wouldn't commit to whether or not Evander Kane was coming back. All Edmonton need to do right now, if Kane stays out, is move Jeff Skinner. I think you've got a team like Calgary who are definitely going to sell Kuzmenko at the deadline, have Anthony Mantha out. They could use an experienced winger. You have potentially the Islanders. I thought about it for Colorado, but the Avalanche have enough guys now back in the fold. It
Josh
made a
Manson is basically Jacob Trouba.
no, not true, but to move Jeff
Oh,
Skinner to is what I'm saying.
oh
So
yeah.
the Edmonton Oilers, it might not be that hard to get rid of that $3 million of Jeff Skinner money. He's an established goal scorer who's struggled so far on the Oilers this year. So and if you're the Rangers and the Edmonton Oilers are able to make the money work, that's a pretty favorable trade that the Oilers can make, right? And Edmonton don't have a whole lot of capital, whether it be prospects or draft picks, really, to be moving for guys. And so getting the Rangers in a position where they might be benefiting from the shaking of the cap hit as much as Edmonton are going to benefit from the player. You're going to have, I think, a solid trade that the Oilers can make if they take the whole deal. Like if Edmonton needs the Rangers to commit to some retention, obviously
And I
that
don't
asking
think they
price,
would
yeah,
because I
that
think there's
asking
teams that would take Trouba without that.
me too, yeah. And so the asking price goes up significantly, I think. But um to me, this very weak Oilers defense suddenly gets pretty solid if you're thinking Ekholm, Bouchard, Nurse, Truba. Brett Kulak has been good enough to anchor a third pair all year. I don't like him being shoehorned into top four roles because he's not that. But if you keep Brett Kulak as a number five, then you could actually realistically, if you're the Oilers, just have the best of Troy Stetcher, Travis Dermott, Ty Emberson be your number six. And then all of a sudden, it's not like half of your decor is playing in at least a spot higher than they really should be, right? Because that's how everybody looks bad. It's not just the guy that shouldn't be the number three or the guy that shouldn't be the number four. Everybody who's trying to handle more than they should be. It's just it will lead to everybody struggling. So I kind of think that if you're the Oilers right now, that not only does that trade help your D, I think the D being better will also help Stuart Skinner, who they have continuously uh, expressed how committed they are to him, right? So rather than going and making a splash for John Gibson, I think Edmonton would be better served to try and grab Trouba.
Okay, to bookend that Trouba and Oilers defense and everything topic, I agree with everything you just said, but I also think it's so damn funny that the Oilers would have a $17 million second pair.
Oh man, yes, absolutely.
The people
Especially
would be rioting in the streets whenever they have a bad game.
$17 million, not to mention like realistically, I'm not saying Trouba didn't deserve his contract when he got it, but realistically right now
First two
that's
years of his deal were sick.
yeah, realistically right now that should not be a $10 million pair. Like that's too much to be paying those two guys. So, but again, Nurse, you shot yourself in the foot with the Nurse one, but Trouba's only got this year and one more. So it's not like you're committing 17 million bucks for those two guys forever. You are for Nurse because, you know, you goofed up there.
Totally. To add something to a huge topic from last week's ep, Jim Montgomery was obviously fired by the Boston Bruins, which I think unfair scapegoat, but way she goes. That's another story. Almost immediately, like what, 48 hours later, he is hired by the St. Louis Blues, who fired Drew Bannister to take him on. And, we could talk all about what this could mean for the Blues, how this is a 5-year deal that lines up with their retool plan, blah, blah, blah. I don't really care about that. I care about the personal aspect here. How the hell do you think Drew Bannister feels?
Oh man, right? Yeah.
You're the guy who got fired to keep the carousel going for an experienced guy to have a job still. That sucks. I feel so bad for him. And you know what? He was doing a good job. This is a Blues team that was in the fight pretty often most games. He didn't have a ton to work with, and he had these guys going. Um, ugh, man, I mean, I think he probably won't have a hard time finding another job. I think realistically, another team would be happy to hire him on an interim basis and then he gets extended in the summer. Like some other coach is going to get fired and then Drew Bannister is probably going to get a call. But I mean, there's other coaches out there, but that's if I start talking about those, we're going to go 9 tangents deep and this is going to be a 2 hour episode.
I bet you it is going to be Mike Sullivan. I actually kind of think he lands in Pittsburgh.
I'm not going to further engage in this coaching carousel conversation.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a scary dead end.
yeah.
Big thing that I've been seeing all over the internet in fantasy hockey, in just people I've been playing video games with, just chatting with people at work. Connor Bedard, 12 months ago, I mean, 12 months to 36 months ago, he is the biggest young phenom in hockey. Now the only conversation about him is would he maybe be better on the wing? I don't know if he can play center. Oh, how come he's struggling so much? Is he not as good as we thought? And while this is happening, everyone is coming around to how freaking ridiculous Macklin Celebrini is. Aiden, at the start of the season, I'd come home from a night out. And you know what? As I sometimes do, shot you a text about some hockey stuff. I was curious about some stuff. Just how good Macklin Celebrini is. And
When
you
was
went,
this?
I want to say this is September.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, and you went think young raw offensive Jonathan Taves. And I went, "Huh, cool." Didn't think a whole lot about it until obviously it popped back into my mind after a couple of his highlight reel goals, which bring me directly back to a highlight from 2007 where Jonathan Taves undresses half of a Colorado Avalanche starting lineup and scores one of the nicer goals I've ever seen. If you haven't seen it, Google it right now. Pause the pod, look it up. Even if you're driving, I don't care. Um, and yeah, a buddy of mine last night was just like, "Oh my God, I keep wanting to watch Sharks games and being so impressed because Celebrini is so cool. He's a North Vancouver kid, at least mostly, and he's doing this, and he has so much more to his game that we still haven't seen fully develop. I mean, he's 18 years old. He's doing this at 18. It's gross. And I said, think Jonathan Taves when he's really young. And he goes, I don't know. Taves wasn't as offensive. I sent him that highlight and he goes, yep, same player.
Uh,
So if Celebrini can have half the career of a Jonathan Taves, I'm not talking time duration wise, that's too short. But half the accolades, man, it's one hell of a career.
we did a lot of Macklin Celebrini praise last week, and then he had a crazy game last night. So it stands to reason why we
It just
are
keeps happening. He's
doing so
that
again.
good.
Yeah, he is. Now, okay, the Connor Bedard half of the coin though, James. Here's what I'll say about Connor Bedard quickly. Comparing him to Macklin Celebrini, like they're two different kinds of players. I think they're both going to be very dominant first line centers for the very foreseeable future. Um, Taking away maybe the comparison between the two and just talking about Connor Bedard, I look at Connor Bedard and I want to just preach to people that put yourself back in 2017, 2018, and the player Austin Matthews was, because Austin Matthews to me was a lot like Connor Bedard. Like he had a great rookie season, looked like he was going to set the league on fire, had a solid second year, but the concerns that kind of started in that second year. I don't remember if you remember the 2018 playoffs. That was the first of back-to-back first round losses to the Bruins. He was absolutely brutal in that series. Like he did nothing that whole series in his second year, his sophomore year. Um, and then in his third season, he got tuned up. He had 37 goals in 68 games. James, at the end of 2018-19, I was now again, I was I was in high school and I remember being having like the hottest hockey take that I could remember having, which was I was so convinced that Mitch Marner was a better player than Austin Matthews. And that was after Matthews' third year in his career, and Marner had just put up 94 points for the first time. And so that's kind of what I'll say as the cautionary tale against um, counting out Connor Bedard in any way, right? It's growing pains on a bad team. It's getting used to the league. It's
God, they're bad.
finding
They're really bad.
yeah, well, they are. Unfortunately for Bedard, unfortunately for Chicago, it's a team that is very, very in the weeds of a rebuild. And now again, that's kind of why I didn't want to maybe try and compare Bedard and Celebrini because so are the Sharks. But Matthews, it wasn't just the fact that Marner was outpacing Matthews for points, but Austin Matthews through the first 3 years of his career, like Marner looked like a much better defensive player too. Marner was a Selke candidate last year. He's not a defensive scrub at all, but it was after kind of the first 3 seasons that Austin Matthews um, completely flipped the script, at least the way I look at him, because um, he rounded out the rest of his game. It took him 3, 4 years to become the offensively dominant and the defensively dominant player that he was. He was not good off the puck in his first couple seasons in the league. He was not good defensively in his first few seasons in the league. He had to grow a lot. He had to find a spot to excel in Toronto where it was his line, it was his situation on a better team, right? So the growing pains with Matthews were different. It wasn't necessarily that he wasn't producing kind of the way that Bedard has stagnated to
Okay, yeah,
produce.
because that's where I was gonna go. I
Yeah, oh,
was
no,
gonna
and what I'm
yeah.
kind of saying is more in the vein of, listen, he had a lot of growing to do. Once the team kind of started being built around him, he was able to grow a little bit more. I know Chicago's building the team around Bedard, but they aren't as good as Toronto was. So again, I think Austin Matthews and Connor Bedard are like I think that's always kind of been my straight shot comparison for Bedard. The shot is the obvious parallel to draw. But I just want to caution the criticism and say again, we touched on the fact last episode that Dylan Strome is maybe only now 10 years after his draft playing fully up to his potential, right? Like it happens in different ways. The adjustment periods are different. Connor Bedard's a guy who not only has won everywhere he's gone, but he's completely wiped out the competition everywhere he's gone. He scored 71 goals in his draft year in the WHL. That does not happen. So he's adjusting to a he's adjusting to a much to a very good league that completely has the book on him, right? Like there's no secret who he is. There's no secret what he can do. Other teams are playing the Chicago Blackhawks and only worried about him, right?
Oh, and they're
That
chomping at the bit to make him look bad. They
yeah,
want him to look terrible.
yeah, yeah. So no. I'm here all day for Macklin Celebrini praise, but uh, a teenage Connor Bedard is not should not worry anybody right now with his lack of spectacular play so far this year.
And like, I mean, we're talking about this, but the guy's got 15 points in just over 20 games. It's not terrible. It's just that if you look at it, if you're actually watching the games, if you're seeing the highlights of other players, which are looking like low lights for him, he's getting bullied. He's getting tossed around out there. Like, he is not the biggest guy. He's obviously not the smallest guy either, but I mean, at 5'10", 185, I thought like the stockiness would help him hold his own more. And especially that mixed with the compete level. He looks like he's getting tossed around all the time. And dude, the face-off dot thing. He's like one of the worst face-off players in the league right now.
He's
It's not
playing
pretty.
that Blackhawks practice today. He was lining up on a line with Philip Kurashev. I don't think that's a coincidence at all because
Khrushchev sucks right now.
Kurashev to me is there to kind of play center a little bit, or at least ease the Bedard center ice like load. Um, Taylor Hall is lining up on that line, at least at practice today.
When he's not a healthy scratch.
Yeah, that was weird.
Really
That was a
weird.
weird one.
Why is he
Um,
the one getting punished?
we're not in that room, right?
No.
Like I have no idea. That's a good question. Um, yeah, I wouldn't jump to any Connor Bedard
Okay, I just need to add this though because it probably sounds like I'm a hater. I want to see him turn around. I'm stoked to see what it happens. I just had to talk about it because everyone else is talking about it. That's kind of the double-edged sword of having a hockey podcast. Is like you have to talk about these things when they're happening. Like you sometimes you have to rinse someone. But you know what? This is one of the best people, uh, best athletes this age, what they do on the planet. So he's gonna be fine. It's just some growing pains. Um, Aiden, where do you want to take this next?
I didn't see the Brett Howden contract coming. Vegas gives Howden 4-year, $10 million deal. So he's making 2.5 million bucks for the next 4 years after this one. He had a solid start. He cooled off a little bit. This is a this is a bet. Like this is a roll of the dice here for this Vegas team who have kind of got some contributions from
Oh, Aiden, it's a 5 year.
5 at 2.5.
Yeah.
So it's 12.5 million. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
As per Talkpedia.
yeah, I am surprised by the fact that the I know $2.5 million doesn't sound like a lot, but I would have thought that if they were ready and willing to commit 5 years to the guy, that that number could have been a little bit lower. He's got 8 goals in 22 games. James, to me, this just very much screams this
He
is
has
a
8 goals.
yeah. And he's
That's
most of
pretty
them,
good.
yeah, it is, and most of them came off the start. Um, this is th- this is what I think Vegas needs to do. Like again, I have some questions about the contract. I have some questions about the player, but if you're the Vegas Golden Knights right now, the reality of your situation is that you have to find these players who you can get locked up for a number you like for a long time because you need it to be worth it. You need to find these sort of bargain bin middle six forwards even, right? The guy on the third line that can step up and play on the left wing on the first line when you really need him to, right? Guys, somebody like what Mason Marchment was in Florida forever, right? Like you need guys like that. And Howden's going to be paid like that kind of player now. Can he do it? We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy I've always kind of cheered for, sort of. I don't know. I've never really had any beef with Brett Howden. He just seems like one of the guys of the NHL.
Yeah, I need to continue to be like, okay, we know now from that 2018 World Junior team, we have the players that are now needing to stand trial for it
Oh, you still have your filter on.
out of the league. So 2018 World Juniors, I'm still waiting to absolve anybody almost in my head. So Howden still has that like little tag on him.
But he's
But
not one of the like indicted guys.
no, he's not. And so I'm looking forward to that whole thing being over just so then it can be well and established. Okay, everybody else is okay, right? You wanted to talk about Josh Norris, and that's kind of where I want to go now is the Ottawa
Okay.
Senators.
Yeah. So I saw something as I was scrolling through Threads, the superior scrolling through stuff app. I will die on that hill. I've even been talking about that with like everyone now. It just keeps coming up. But obviously I got a notification from Threads because it knows what I want to see. Said, "Oh, a recent update from Daily Faceoff's Frank Saravalli. They are potentially shopping Josh Norris." And then I go on the score and I see that Bruce Garriock, I can't remember where he's from, but pretty reputable journalist. I think he's Ottawa area. He's just like on their beat, maybe. I can't quite remember. Says that now that Artem Zub is injured with a broken foot and they are floundering in their own end sometimes, they are looking for a defenseman. So I was like, oh my God, they are going to try and trade Josh Norris for a defenseman. These two journalists found each piece of the equation, but not together. These are different parts of the puzzle found by different people. That's awesome. And I think I found the third piece. Rasmus Anderson. I think Josh Norris could get traded to the Calgary Flames for Rasmus Anderson.
Yeah.
You heard it here first, folks.
No, I have no rebuttal because it is a very good idea because
It
I
fits
think
better than anything else around the NHL. Anything.
yeah, no, it's two puzzle pieces, honestly, because you look at that Calgary Flames team. Obviously, Nazem Kadri is going to stay down the middle. He's their centerman.
Yep.
You've got Connor Zary as well, but if there's one thing that I think they're missing, it's just a pure goal scorer,
Yep.
right? It is, and Josh Norris is a pure goal scorer. And again, people have short memories, so they forget how good this guy actually is. But he's a player with I think 40 goal upside. He's a talented goal scorer. He's smart. He's a very, very smart hockey player who can play center of the wing. And he is what Calgary's lacking. And you know what? 25 years old. He'll be 27, 28 when they're ready to contend, hopefully, right? Um,
Aiden, let me build you a second line. Jonathan Huberdeau, Josh Norris, Matt Coronado.
Jonathan Huberdeau would get 40 assists minimum on a line
Yep.
on that line in an
Uh-huh.
82 game season. If
I
on a
think
bad
55.
yeah, bad year, 40 assists. And no, that's excellent. And that's excellent as they'll continue to build around that. Rasmus Anderson at 28. A, he no longer fits their timeline. B, I'm a big sell high guy. So let's make the trade, right?
And he's about to go be awesome at the Four Nations face-off because Erik Karlsson is confused about hockey right now.
And if you're Calgary, you've got Zane Parekh, who I think sooner rather than later is
Oh
actually going to
yeah.
end up staple to that top pair. Um, yeah, that's perfect. Honestly, that's
I didn't put like so just for our listeners, Aiden and I have a rundown. I put the Norris part, I put the Zub part, I put the those sources part in there, but I didn't tell him my final puzzle piece that I figured out myself.
I was also, and again, I was also thinking, James, Calgary and if you think about what Calgary have done, they've done a lot to strengthen that defense over the last what 12 to 18 months.
Yep. Yeah.
So what was the
Miramanov's
rumored?
not terrible.
I like Miramanov, yeah. What was the rumored David Juracek ask from the Columbus Blue Jackets?
A like player. So
Okay,
a player at a similar position and level of potential.
okay, so Calgary have just loaded up on an overwhelming number of prospect defensemen. I don't think they're trading Parekh, but I think everybody else should be on the table for David Juracek.
Like who?
That
You got
was,
any?
well, I am a huge Kevin Ball fan.
Right.
Huge Kevin Ball fan. Columbus already have Denton Mateychuk, so I'm looking at their needs long term, and I'm saying, you know what? I think it's more in the vein of stay at home, strong, uh, two-way defenseman than it is looking at like a completely like for like swap in the sense of you want the offense that David Juracek would bring.
Yeah, they have Zach Werenski too, right? So
Yeah,
like
Daniil Miramanov, if he was 4 years younger, I would totally be into that idea for a swap. But he's 27. It's not Columbus's window at all. That's not again that's not a like for like swap. Um, Hunter Brushevich has kind of tanked his value this year because he has not adjusted well to the AHL. But that was one of the things I thought. We've seen the Edmonton Oilers, we've seen the Nashville Predators. What do you think for David Juracek makes sense? Because again, this is, you know, I've talked a lot on this podcast about what a big fan I am of this guy. I don't really know how many teams should be looking at him and thinking, you know what, if he's available, I got to at least take a swing. I don't care really where you are in your in where you are as a franchise, because this is a guy who, given the right opportunity, can, like, look at the Edmonton Oilers and what happened when they put Philip Broberg in the lineup. Broberg was crucial. And if you had asked, like, what do the Edmonton Oilers need right now? An inexperienced, raw, young defenseman wouldn't have been the answer when they promoted Broberg, but it ended up being exactly what they needed. So realistically, I'm not I'm not going to count out any of the other 31 teams that I think realistically should be interested in this.
Okay, if the Oilers are offering Matt Savoy in a draft pick, are they really saying no? Like, I know they want a
Yeah,
defenseman, but come on.
I would say no.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
We aren't confident Matt Savoy.
It's not necessarily that I'm not confident in Matt Savoy. I'm more thinking, if you're the Columbus Blue Jackets, you have multiple forwards with much higher ceilings.
Right.
So Matthew Savoy will never be better than Adam Fantilli,
Right.
and so right there, it's you have a very valuable right shot defenseman. Yesterday, I think I texted you. I was on this some like I just had this hunch that it was going to be Vancouver, and it was completely a very, biasly hopeful one. But like Tom Wielander kind of makes a lot of sense to me. If you're Columbus, Wielander's a year younger. He's having a sick year in the NCAA so far this season, and I bet you if you are Columbus, you would be able to get Wielander plus for Juracek. And I think Vancouver, again, if it was Wielander and a first round pick for Juracek, I'm sold. Do it. But Sarah Valley did say that it wasn't the Canucks earlier today. So who do you think? Anyways, all that to say, James, give me a Eurocheck destination.
Honestly, bro, I'm still on Calgary.
Yeah.
I see no reason that Craig Conroy and this Flames management team shouldn't just be chomping at the bit to get him. Like if you look at all of the moves they make, this is exactly the kind of thing they're going for. I do see that the Pittsburgh Penguins are in panic mode to make moves, and I wouldn't be blown away if they just threw a bunch of stuff at the wall and said, Columbus, you want it?
Well, they have part of the ask, because I think Owen Pickering would fit into that
I know.
um
I know.
age like for like swap kind of conversation. He's a left
Owen
shot
Pickering, a
defenseman.
draft pick, and the failed Samuel Poulin.
Yeah, why not? Reclamation project in Poulin.
Yeah,
Maybe you throw him with Johnson and he just cooks, right? Who's
yeah,
playing
it's
really well this
possible.
year, by the way. Let's give Kent Johnson. He's back from injury and he hasn't really skipped a beat. But um, yeah, I like Calgary. I like Pittsburgh. It's what Pittsburgh needs to do is try and get some more young players in there. One of the Eurocheck rumored destinations was Nashville. Nashville just traded Phil Tomasino to Pittsburgh. Phil Tomasino's another swing and a miss from that Nashville Predators team, isn't it?
All right, Aiden. I'm going to pull up a very, very interesting document that I found on. Where do you think I found it, Aiden?
On Threads
What?
for sure.
Yeah, on
Yeah.
Threads. It was on Threads. It was from the account NHL headlines underscore. I just hate that's just like you gotta put that in there. It's just a thing. But what they explained to me was that the Predators have officially traded every single one of their first round draft picks from 2016 to 2020. Dante Fabro waived. Eeli Tolvanen waived. Philip Tomasino traded. Yaroslav Askarov traded. That's gross. But it tells you one thing. One thing that a lot of people who aren't diehard hockey nerds might not understand or know. When a new general manager comes in, often brings a lot of his new guys, whether that's scouting department, AGM, even just advisors, right? And when you come in, you and your boys basically go do an investigation on every single prospect that this organization has, every single player, everything. You see where all of these prospects are at, how their development has gone since they were drafted, and realistically, where we think they're going to get now. It makes total sense that Barry Trotz and his management team have gone, you know what? these guys aren't pieces of the puzzle because this wasn't his scouting department. When he comes in, all of these players are a clean slate that he's starting from scratch with. And then he's looking at Zachary Leroux or Luke Evangelista and being like, okay, these guys are doing what they're asked. Cool. Now he still has many first round selections from 2021 up until 2024 and still in the organization. Whether that's Fedor Svechkov, Zachary Leroux, Joachim Kemmel, Matthew Wood, Tanner Molendyk, and Yegor Shurin. And I believe, call me crazy, but I think they have more than one draft pick in one of the first two rounds this year, don't they? They've
Yeah.
got some extra picks. But yeah, I don't really think Barry Trotz is really sweating that hard over that. But the fan looking from the outside might start losing a little bit of faith. Kind of a casualty that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned Tomasino, and I did traded to Pittsburgh for a fourth rounder.
Right now, Nashville have 5 picks in the first 2 rounds of the next draft because they have
Ew, how many in the first?
three first rounders, 2 second rounders.
Ew.
Um, I think in 2 separate trades with Tampa, they got Tampa's first and second rounder. I think um one of them I think was McDonough.
No.
Jeannot, right, yeah. Um Jeannot, I think, was the second rounder because they previously had the first rounder they got for Jeannot. But yeah, that's work Trotz can do, right? So obviously he's looking forward. He sees who he already drafted and he sees the selections he has on the horizon. I'll talk a little bit about one of them, but the 2024 draft class is impressing the hell out of me. There's no real guys that are coming into the draft year and disappointing me. I have seen the fact, yeah, I know James Higgins isn't scoring goals. James Higgins is also shooting at an under 4% shooting percentage that will not remain. That is not something that continues for skilled players like that. Much in the same way that if you see somebody with a 30% shooting percentage, you will 100% be able to bank on their goal scoring totals coming down because that is just what happens. Um, But Nashville, I would agree with you that nobody should be throwing up their arms that this is a an issue, right? The fact that that the draft picks have been you know given up on because again, you're right that it wasn't the maybe sins of the father is the way Barry Trotz is looking at that a little
Okay.
bit.
Yeah.
Um Tomasino, fit never really was there. I felt like they kind of
Okay.
shoehorned
Wait,
him.
wait, 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 wait. Don't say never really was there.
It was there,
Season
sorry.
before last, there was a
Yeah.
20 game stretch where he was unbelievable.
Yeah, and I think from there they stopped. I don't know, it kind of felt like they stopped giving him priority, and that makes sense when you have a guy on the upswing and you're like, no, now we're winning now, we're trying to be good now, and that's what happened. So, yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense for them to recoup a draft pick for him too. Makes sense for Pittsburgh to make this move. You don't know who in those top six, top nine he's gonna have chemistry with. He's a good passer and he's smart, so there's a lot of good players in that Pittsburgh top six that wouldn't balk at getting to add a guy like that to their line.
Totally. I mean, he's been a puck hound in at moments too. Like at times he's been a guy who is first in on the forecheck doing crazy things, but then other times he kind of feels like a passenger. So hope for the best for him. We love a good reclamation project. When a player realizes their potential somewhere else and you see them fall back in love with the game, awesome. I'm not saying he's fallen out of love with the game, but you want to see a young guy like that with a high pedigree succeed. Aiden, I believe you had a player who's playing his first game tonight, and you are listening at the earliest on Wednesday, November 27th. Aiden and I are recording on Tuesday, November 26th. Who's starting their NHL career tonight?
Not career, just
Oh,
first game of the season for Joshua Waugh. He got some
nice.
time last year with Montreal. 8 goals and 16 points in 17 games. I thought he would have and should have made the team out of camps right away, but it's a deserved promotion for a guy that's almost at a point per game. He had a good year in the AHL last season. I'm always going to cheer for this guy because I never understood why there was so much doubt around him. Like he broke out huge in the first year after his draft year. And he was a 2021 pick, which means he was a COVID guy. So he shouldn't have gone as late as he did. This is the guy that is going to one day be a very important middle six producer. So I'm very happy for him because I like the player a lot and he's earned this call up.
He does all the right things. I always love what I see from him. Moving on to something a little less awesome. The Carolina Hurricanes have been absolutely rolling this season, looking great. Marty Necas is a world beater. Seth Jarvis has been out. Other guys haven't been producing as much. I think Necas has almost twice as many points as the next guy on the Canes. I think one of the times I checked, it was no joke, 32-16. And from him to the next guy, in their team's leading scorers. They've been dealing with another Frederick Anderson injury. I believe he was out 8 to 12 weeks or something like that. I don't remember what the injury was. Kochetkov playing real solid. Now he's out indefinitely in concussion protocol. That could mean he's back in a week. Could mean he's back in a couple months. Let's hope for it being a very, very short time on the IR. It's not really something you want to see, but great opportunity for Spencer Martin. Pretty likable guy in the NHL. He stepped in for different teams at different times, and he seems to be a pretty popular guy with teammates. I don't know who their fourth goalie is. Whoever it is, probably going to get a game in, but at least for the foreseeable handful of games, Spencer Martin, crease is yours. Have fun.
Yeah, it's Yaniv Peretz, who's their third goalie, who was
I'm sorry, who?
his name is Yaniv Peretz, and the reason you probably haven't heard of him is because he spent the majority of last season in the ECHL.
Oh.
Um, he is the backup for the Chicago Wolves right now, is where he's playing.
Mm.
Um, yeah, that's interesting, if nothing else.
You know
I
what? Good for him.
yeah, and I definitely think that there is a path for Carolina to be the next team to acquire a goaltender. I don't mind Spencer Martin in any way, shape, or form as a backup. He's solid. Yeah, you're right that he's likable and he works. Um, I think Carolina is in a spot where like they have all the momentum in the world. If I'm that Canes team, I'd like to put a band-aid over this goalie situation and just hope that the train can continue rolling.
Yeah, get some
Obviously,
Sporin in there.
yeah, and obviously we've crossed our fingers for Kochetkov because again, this kind of looked like a step for him this year. And Anderson hasn't been bad, but he looked he was playing starter caliber hockey all year so far for sure.
One more piece of NHL news before we move on. I just want to talk a little bit about the Calgary Flames. I know we've said a couple things earlier on this episode, but um, if you listen to this podcast, you're used to Aiden and I giving flowers to a lot of teams or players that are continually impressing, but we might not have had some time to talk about them in recent episodes because you know what? It probably didn't feel like that big of a deal. Well, we're at the point where it's a big deal. Dustin Wolf and the Calgary Flames really are good. Is this just a good start? I don't know. I don't really care. They're playing great right now. They lost their last game 4-3 to the Ottawa Senators. They've got a 12-7-3 record, but the goaltending tandem of Dan Vladar and Dustin Wolf was supposed to be a split. Dustin Wolf has somewhat run away with it. In 12 starts, he's 8-3-1 with a 921 save percentage, 247 goals against average, and one shutout. Aiden, I told you he was going to be good. I told a lot of people he was going to be good. I actually tried to trade him to bad teams in our fantasy keeper league in the offseason. Guys who didn't have enough keepers for like an eighth round pick so many times. And they're like, whoa, he's not even going to be a starter. Oh, yeah. Okay. Sure. Hold on. Let me draft him again in the 10th round. Yeah. As of right now, I believe he's the number 8 to 10 ranked fantasy goalie across all platforms, depending on how you set up your league. That's probably not going to keep up all season. I don't really care. It's awesome seeing a rookie goalie play himself into the Calder conversation. There's no way you can't have him in your top three rookies so far. It's like him, Michkov, Celebrini, I believe. Like maybe a slice of Brant Clark in there. Maybe.
That's a nice little group of four.
Yeah. Yeah. But in other things on this Calgary Flames team, we've talked a lot about Rasmus Anderson, how great he started the year. He's still playing fantastic. The points haven't really been coming. But the most interesting thing going on this roster, that aforementioned Rasmus Anderson is leading the team with 13 points in 22 games. They've got three guys with 12, one with 11, two with 10, two with 9, two with 8. This is a scoring by committee thing going on with a bunch of guys who just don't want to lose. Everyone counted them out. Everyone. Everyone. And you know what? There's a recent article on the hockey writers saying their lack of scoring will lead to a major downfall. Don't be like them. Don't be like them. Don't gamble and bet on a team's downfall and hope for it. That's not cool. The hockey writers put out three articles in one day about how this is stupid, this is dumb, the Flames suck. Bleh. I think someone was having a bad day and they just really wanted to rain on someone else's parade. Um, I wanted to, oh yeah, to bookend this for what I have here. Dan Vladar offered a simple reason, as per the score, on why his team's second in the Pacific Division, a quarter way through the season. He said, "We're a hungry bunch of bastards in here. We all want it, and we're not going to give it away for free." That's bulletin board material.
Yeah.
Put
Well,
that on your wall, tattoo it across your back. We're not going to give it away for free.
you made a comment about Jim Montgomery earlier where he ended up being like the scapegoat out of a team's uh, lack of success. I hope that whoever is running the show in Calgary above GM Craig Conroy, like I hope that Conroy and Huska get to grow with this team
Totally.
because I think they've both done an excellent job. I think they're two guys that have, like I said, not only have they been good, I've got faith that they can and will continue to excel at these positions. And so often you see like, it's kind of the Ryan Warsofsky vibe right now in San Jose, where you look at Warsofsky and you're like, okay, are you are you the coach that's going to bring this team to success when Will Smith and William Eklund and Macklin Celebrini are in their primes? Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. But you definitely weren't
Probably
hired
not.
to be. But you definitely weren't hired to be, right? And so that's kind of where I'm looking at. I'm looking at Craig Conroy and Ryan Huska, especially Huska, and I'm saying, you know what? Even if you weren't hired to be, I think you should be. I think you should be the guy to ride this out. So that's my 2 cents on the Flames.
One more quick thing, a couple important stats. I'm not talking player stats, I'm talking team stats. They are very much in the back half of the league on most team stats. When I say team stats, I'm talking goals, power play percentage, shooting percentage. They're 30th in faceoff percentage. Um, Shots on goal allowed, they're 24th. Like they're allowing over 30 shots on goal a game. But the two stats that they're at least somewhat high in, goals allowed, they're ninth, and that's lack of goals allowed. That's because of Mr. Dustin Wolf. That is a Dustin Wolf stat. Also shots on goal. They are 13th in shots on goal with 29.9 per game. And that just goes back to Dan Vladar's quote. They're hungry. They want it. These guys are getting in on the forecheck. They don't care that they aren't starting with the puck. And they're almost never starting with the puck because they win 44.6% of faceoffs. It's not pretty, but they go get it. And they get it on net. And they score the odd goal. And then they win games 2-1, 3-2. They don't ask how. What do they ask, Aiden?
How many?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Moving on to junior. I believe Aiden has a player to talk about.
Yeah, we're gonna obviously get more into this 2025 NHL draft. I just, I've talked about Roger McQueen. I just had a quick word on James Higgins, and we've talked Michael Misa a lot, but there's one here that's not like the other in terms of these top prospects, and that is because I think we're only going to see one defenseman at least in the top eight. There's a kid at Wisconsin, Logan Hensler, who definitely could work his way into the top 10. He's
He's
quite
good.
he's quite the player, and really good defensively, which is awesome to see from an 18-year-old. Um, he's mobile. He's a good two-way guy. But the special one is Matthew Schaefer. I recently got finally to watching some highlights of this guy. Not only is he fleet of foot, like he is so fast, but it's the decision making with the puck at that speed for Erie that looks so good. He had mono to start this year, and he looks like he hasn't like lost a step whatsoever from the player he was at the U18s last season. And I do think that there's a chance that he ends up going second overall. Like I said, I think James Higgins, I know he's only scored one goal in the NCAA this year, but he has 14 assists in 12 games. That's not a coincidence. That the point totals are still coming for him. I think Higgins is kind of a slam dunk to just be Jack Hughes. Like that's everybody's comparison because that's what he looks like. He's just another Hughes here. Um,
Isn't he better defensively?
I would say so, but I'm overly critical of Jack Hughes off the puck, I think. Like I think he's got a very, very, very long way to go in his two-way game.
If he
Um
does.
yeah, and so Hagen's yes, I do think Hagen's is a better two-way player. I'm a bigger fan of him than I ever have been of Hughes. But Schaefer to me right now, he might be my leading candidate for second overall, just because it's not often you see a defenseman that's this fast, this smart, and is as durable as he's been so far this season. So as we're kind of going into World Junior time, it's rare that you're going to see a 17-year-old defenseman be picked for Team Canada. I don't think he's going to end up going, but he is worth watching all season long in the OHL if you can.
Um, yeah, I feel like a lot of people aren't talking about Schaefer as much as they usually talk about the top defenseman in each crop.
Well, and
Why do you think that is?
I think it's because he had mono and he was out. Like I just think he was late to the party a little bit, right? So
Right.
he's kind of just, finally getting to his best this season, fully recovering. So I think only now are we seeing the best this guy can be. That, and not to mention, again, Hagens has kind of come under fire for not putting the puck in the back of the net, but Roger McQueen and Porter Martone and Michael Misa have all been just unbelievably good. And not only have they all been unbelievably good, but Misa and Martone are in the OHL. McQueen is in the WHL. If the other guy, like if Schaefer was the guy in the OHL, and if she or even in the CHL, like we would be hearing crazy praise for him from all corners. Is just the fact that the CHL have not only, I think, four of the top five, but you could even expand that. Like, there's a chance Cameron Schmidt ends up in the top 10 with the way this guy's trending this season. You've got Malcolm Spence, who looks really good. You've got some guys there in the CHL that Cole Reshny looks awesome from Victoria. I watched him while I was working a Rebels game this weekend. He's so I think that's your answer, James, is just the overwhelming amount of 2025 eligible guys that are just really playing well in the CHL, specifically in the dub and the O so far this year.
Okay, I have to say something that I don't know if you're aware of, but it directly goes with our Calgary conversation and this Matthew Schaefer conversation. Do you remember when Sean Monahan was traded to the Montreal Canadiens and there was a conditional first round pick in there?
Sean Monahan, yes.
Yeah, Calgary made that deal. They basically paid Montreal a somewhere down the line first round pick. If Calgary has any pick other than first in this draft, it's Montreal's. If Calgary lotteries their way up to two or three, it's Montreal's.
Wow.
Yeah. So let's keep an eye on that. And that's probably some motivation for Calgary's management team to be like, well, let's not be bad. Because that one would really sting. Really would. Moving on to just a couple other things around the hockey world. Aiden and I are both massive fans of Jeff Marek. Longtime Hockey Night in Canada, Sportsnet, everything in between. Just a wonderful person within the sports world. Thing or two happened with Sportsnet, and he was no longer with them after the 2024 NHL draft. He is back. He's officially back. I don't know if Aiden, you were keeping an eye on his social media, but he did a really good job of teasing it. Just like little bits here and there of him being like, "Well, I'm coming back. Don't worry." And he's specifically back with a new podcast on Daily Face Off called The Sheet. From what I see, he's had an interesting guest or two already, and he will continue to do so as he is a much loved guy. Um, he just as of today was a guest host on an episode of Spit and Chicklets, and he talked about how we're not going to go further into this. I just want to say this on here, but he talked about how the process really, really let you know who your real friends are. And I would like you to take a quick look at who his new Instagram account, The Sheet, is following, or specifically not following. We're not going to go further into that, but if you can figure it out, you get it. It's there. It's not really something I expected, but it's there. Another thing, another revelation out of Spit and Chicklets specifically in the hockey world is co-host of that pod and TNT panelist Paul Bissonnette, much loved guy in the hockey world as well. He was assaulted. Well, I mean, judging from the pictures, it looks like he reverse assaulted the guys who went at him. But he was attacked by a bunch of guys who were honestly just being a bunch of losers in a restaurant and being rude to servers and just being all around bad people. But I will say sometimes good people do bad things. Sometimes you see the red mist through some intoxication, anger, whatever it may be. Still, it's no excuse. You be good to people, you don't cause violence, and you absolutely do not be rude to servers, bartenders, hostesses, anything in an establishment like that. You
Here's
don't
the
know.
thing that here's the thing that you're not going to know when you walk into those restaurants, okay? Every single one of those employees right now is actually dealing with the same thing. Every owner of every business ever right now is cutting costs, and when owners try and cut costs, it puts more on the plates of employees. Employees will be asked to provide further responsibility to make up for the fact that the owner is cutting costs. This happens in every job ever. If you have a restaurant, if you have a business, if you have a store, if you have anything that you frequent that is very quickly churning downwards. Honestly, dude, like this is a topic even that can be applied to Tim Hortons in Canada. Tim Hortons in Canada are like literally crumbling, man. This restaurant is
Oh, they
it,
suck. I hate them.
it's getting to the point where it's a punchline. Like it's a joke how bad this is. 0% of it is on anybody that works in those Tim Hortonses.
Yep.
1000% of it is on the company that owns them and their ridiculously like stingent cost cutting measures. So
Oh,
at
but
the end of the
Aiden, they have pizzas now.
yeah, oh great. Yeah. I tried to order one the other day. I was gonna try it for the first time on Sunday night and they were out.
12-minute wait.
Um no, they just didn't have them.
Oh,
So even better.
wow.
Um yeah. I just wanted a hot chocolate on the way home on Sunday night from Calgary. I was like, yeah, I'll try the pizza out. No, I won't. So that's my 2 cents on just what James is saying about be nice to everybody because not just the fact that they deserve your respect, they're fellow human beings, but the fact that the bad situation that you're both in is probably not either of your faults.
Okay, two things. I gotta finish this biz thing because the reason we're talking about being nice to servers is because this brawl ensued in a restaurant that he frequents in Arizona, I believe. Because these people were being borderline violent with staff, and Biz, being a good guy, just an all-around solid dude, went up and said, "Hey, you guys should really stop. These are nice people. It's not their fault." I'm paraphrasing here. Um, if you don't, we're gonna have an issue and we might have to take it outside. As soon as he says that, like four guys go at him, and he's having a brawl with like eight people. Um, the craziest thing of all of this is like I saw the picture of his face kind of swollen, And, and then I saw the mug shots of the 8 guys that he fought. Dude, I wouldn't have wanted to be the 8 guys in that 1v8.
Was it six? I saw six mugshots on one photo together. It might have been
Yeah, there's a
six.
couple guys that got away that haven't been brought in
Oh
yet.
my God, dude. Wow. Yeah, no, it's like the ultimate like it's the cliche of like, oh, you should see the other guy, except in Bissonnette's case, it's like, oh, you should see the half dozen other
Yeah.
guys. Like,
I think Spin Chicklets captioned the post of with the picture of all of them. Took a couple, dished out more.
yeah. Yeah.
Uh
Um, yeah.
yeah.
No, that's some rock star stuff there from Bissonnette for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, like that was just like some man of the people kind of thing that you'd see in a movie. Like I love that. Guy out for dinner by himself stands up for everyone and fights 8 guys. Okay. Time to take it out of that. I don't have any trivia or games planned for you, Aiden. Do you have anything for me?
No, because I wanted to kind of do the Eurocheck like destination
Right.
and trade rumor a little bit more like a game. But honestly, by the time anybody's hearing this, he's gonna have been dealt. So I didn't
Probably.
want to like go really hard into like
That's how
making up
podcasts
mock
work.
trades. Yeah, yeah. So I thought we needed to talk about it for sure because we haven't talked about the trade rumors, but I was kind of gonna park some time here to give you like some trade scenarios where we were gonna, but no, we didn't. But we can move on to movies because I know we both have something to talk about.
Beautiful. Okay. Everyone listening to this pod, I'd be blown away if they haven't tried watching Succession yet. Because I think I spent 3 straight episodes, maybe 4, telling Aiden you gotta watch Succession on the air. Like this has probably been a combined 3 minutes of our podcast over the past, I don't know, yeah, 3, 4 episodes. From what I gather, you finally watched the pilot. Tell us and tell the listeners what you think, and did I oversell it?
Not so far, not the pilot. So far, like again, it's always going to stand out about the early season because you can admire the writing in a particular episode so much, but believable characters with believable chemistry, well portrayed, is a good first good first few check marks to check off of any movie TV show. So that was the first thing I noticed about Succession was the very well portrayed family and well cast and the way they interacted with each other was very believable to the characters they're supposed to be. The plot of the episode was good, and I actually timed it after I did my work today because I did an Oilers video today where I did talk about Truba. Um, and I watched it after because I knew if it was going to live up to James's expectation and I watched it before, I wasn't going to do any work today and I was just going to keep watching it. So I've only watched one episode literally because I timed it so that I would be done around when we needed to start.
On your next empty sick day, you're probably gonna end up binge watching.
Tomorrow morning. I'm
Yes.
gonna
There
end
you
up
go.
watching. Yeah.
I'm sorry, girlfriend and world and work people. I am sick for the next 3 hours and 43 minutes as I watch 4 episodes of Succession.
The Oilers don't play till Friday. I have a Rebels game on Friday. I don't really need to do much until then.
Beautiful. Am I up? Is it my turn?
Yes, you
Yeah.
you have one too.
Okay. Last night got I got in one of those moods where you just start cleaning everything in the house. Everything. And I think this is a recurring theme on this podcast because I think once a week I just do all of it. I think I've talked about this recently. And I kept trying to think of like, oh, what am I gonna watch? What am I gonna throw on in the background? It didn't end up being background. It wasn't background because I put on The Bike Riders starring Tom Hardy and Austin Butler. And dude, what a cool movie. I think some people might be disappointed looking at the cast and having watched the trailer and being like, why wasn't it more crazy and exciting? And you know what? Learn to watch a chill movie. Figure it out. If you can't handle it, go watch like Prison Break or something. I don't know. Like just be be someone who can't handle like a good slow burn. And it's not even much of a slow burn. I wouldn't even call it a slow burn. But I noticed it's a movie that a lot of people were excited for and not a lot of people ended up like talking about further down the line. I do think it's probably like number 5 or 6 in my top movies of 2024 for now. There's a couple more to go. I'm going to be watching one of them in theaters tonight. I think we got a couple more that I'm going to have to keep seeing. Um, man, I think my worst movies of 2024 is bigger, but yeah. Anyway, I think this movie is really interesting because if you like Tom Hardy in any role he's ever been in, any, you're gonna love him in this one. He is so cool, so interesting, so like menacingly cool. He's not a villain. He's just a guy with a lot of responsibility who does some cool stuff. And Austin Butler, I think when he started really blowing up and people are like, "Oh my God, he's the perfect Elvis." No, you know what? He's the perfect like suave, cool, good-looking biker guy. Elvis sucked. That movie's terrible. This is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. I've tried and failed to watch the whole thing 3 times.
Wow.
Yeah, the only thing I've watched as bad as that in the last 5 years was Thor: Love and Thunder, which I also couldn't finish 3 times.
Dude, I haven't even tried with
No, no, Marvel's
yeah.
dead, bro. I'm out.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm
buddy.
so out. But yeah, it's really interesting because it's told from the perspective of Austin Butler's character's girlfriend, who actually had a crazy good performance. Let me quickly just check her name here. It is Jodie Comer.
Jodie
Yeah,
Comer was the best part of Free Guy from what I remember.
that's right. Yeah, she
Yeah,
was.
because the
Um,
plot definitely wasn't.
yeah, like the whole movie is told from her perspective, and it makes it so interesting because she's not one of the two main characters. And you kind of get the vibe at times she's telling it from a secondhand account. And the whole time she's telling the story to someone, and the person she's telling the story to is the person writing the book that this movie's based on. Because this movie's based on the story of like one of the original great biker gangs slash clubs and how it started and what it eventually became. And there's some really cool supporting cast performances from Norman Reedus, Michael Shannon. Like that's a really nice touch. Yeah, I was really impressed all around. I'm not gonna go and say it's one of the best movies I've ever seen, but it was a really enjoyable watch. I think it's a solo watch if you're a dude. Like if you watch it with your buddies, you might kind of like get drawn out, might end up talking a little bit. If you watch it with your girlfriend, she might want to like order food or like, you know, but super cool. Definitely recommend the watch because I know every single person who listens to this podcast is a dude.
And Aiden's mom. Shout out Aiden's mom
Oh,
for
shout
sure.
out Aiden's mom.
For sure is listening to this.
Well, thank you for listening, Aiden's mom. You're keeping our demographic better. I really, really appreciate you.
It's making it not 100-0, dude.
Well, dude, you have a sister. Get her to listen to it too.
Dude, no way.
What do you think the odds she could listen to 10 minutes of one pod is?
Zero, dude. Like
Oh,
it would have to be somebody being like, if you can name one thing they talked about, I'll give you $100,000. And she'd be like, no, I'm not listening. I don't care.
oh God. That's tough. That's tough. I think everyone in Aiden's family except his sister is a fan, even his parents' dogs.
You did get to meet the dogs
Oh, I got to
when
meet
they
the
were
dogs.
like super small. You got like the full on puppy stage.
Yeah, they were like both excited to see me and scared of my existence. They're like running up to me and then running away, like, I want to see him, but I don't. Ah. Yeah, they were doing some puppy stuff. Yeah, Aiden, I think that's the whole pod.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think that is the entire Evgeny Malkin episode. I
Yeah,
thank
nice.
all of you guys for listening, as always. I'm gonna stop beating the drum to send a voice note into the pod because it's not happening. You guys really let me down on that one. It's tough go, tough go. You know what? I'm used to disappointment. It's all right. But yeah, without further ado, let's roll that outro. Thanks, guys.